Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me. This is the morning market review. It's Tuesday, and it's the 18th of July, 2023. My name is Russell Shaw. I'm a senior market specialist at FXCM, and my email address is rshaw@fxcm.com. If anyone needs to correspond with me, just send an email through to rshaw@fxcm.com, and I'll respond as soon as I can. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring up our disclaimers. We'll start off with the high-risk investment warning. I'll keep this on screen for a few moments. Good morning, Raj. Pleasure to have you on the webinar. And morning to you, Kim. Thank you very much for joining. It is much appreciated. And thank you for everyone for signing in this morning. Let's just go ahead, bring up our market commentaries disclaimer. And finally, we'll just take a look at the references, which would be MarketScope 2.0 and TradingView.com. And I think what we will do is we'll bring MarketScope across, and we'll start doing some work on MarketScope. I want to change this layout to what I call the main layout, and that's where we generally do most of our work. So let's just go to main layout here. Okay. All right, and let's take a look at the DAX. So what we're looking for is some signs of trend. Okay, at the moment we are lacking some points with regards to trend. We've got a reference peak, we've got a reference trough, but we don't have 4 points. We've only got 2 points. So if I go ahead and bring up Microsoft Paint just to show you what we're looking for in terms of trend, and you'll see what is what's lacking here. Okay, there we go. For a trend, we need 4 points. Need 4 points. Okay, you've got point number 1, which we'll call the reference trough. You've got point number 2, which we'll call the reference peak. Okay, then point number 3, higher trough, and point number 4 is actually when we move above the previous peak, because once we move above it, well, then we've got the higher peak, right? Let's just do similar with a downtrend, so everybody's aware of what we're looking for in a downtrend. With a downtrend, we need 4 points as well, and it would look something like this. Okay, so what we'll put in is a reference peak. We'll put in our reference trough. We'll put in then, now here we'll put in the lower peak, LP, okay? And then as soon as price takes out the previous trough, okay, as soon as that gets taken out, well, then we've got the 4th point, then we've got the, what we call the lower peak, okay? So those are the 4 points that we work with in terms of trend. Now, what's subsequently happened on the DAX is we did have 4 points, but those have been sort of nullified or cancelled. So if we put in the reference trough over here, okay, we put in a reference peak over there. Okay, let's just delete these ones for the time being. Now, here is your higher trough. Okay, here's your higher peak. So at this point, it looks like we have some sort of trend, and then what happens is price takes out this trough here, you see. So as soon as it takes out that trough, we don't have a series of higher troughs, higher peaks anymore. In fact, this one is a lower peak, but it's not a downtrend. Why is it not a downtrend? It's not a downtrend because we don't have a lower peak followed by a lower trough. Okay, all we have is it's a high peak followed by a lower trough. So we don't have the parameters for a downtrend. So because we don't have the parameters for a downtrend, we have to start the relabeling. Okay, so we take these out, take these out, and we've started the relabeling because we don't have a trend. But if we don't have a trend, we've just got the references. So here's our reference peak, and here's our reference trough. Okay, so we've just got 2 of 4 points. That makes analysis of the DAX much more difficult than if we had the 4 points. So what we can do, we can keep an eye on, say, a momentum indicator like the RSI, and the momentum indicator here is above 50. So perhaps there is some sort of positivity here, and we'll defer to the RSI. So okay, there is positivity here. So if there's positivity, then we want to see a reference candle reversal, which we don't have yet either. Reference candle reversals are very useful to keep a lookout for because they're always present at swings. They don't always lead to swings, but they're always present at swings. So if we can get price to take out the reference candles high, that would add to some sort of positivity there. Let's just take a look at the daily chart here. And price action yesterday was actually very interesting. When we spoke yesterday, it was challenging going into zone 2 from zone 1. Zone 1 being the upper blue, upper red. It was challenging going from the upper blue, upper red into the 2 blues. That would be what we call relative weakness. It's moving from the zone of strength into the zone of neutrality. While neutrality is not the bearish zone, a movement from strength to neutrality is a step backwards. It's weakness. But take a look at what happened at yesterday's candle. See, this is yesterday's candle. Now again, let's just take a look at the price action yesterday, and then I'll pose a question to you. The question is, who's in control at the end of the period yesterday? Is it the bulls or the bears? So what we'll do is we'll just put a set of axes down, and the axes are representing yesterday's price and time. And what happens is we open up round about here. What happens is, and then this is happening whilst we're speaking yesterday, there's a big sell-off. And at this stage, the question is, well, who's in control? And I think we can all see, well, it's the bears that are in control. What subsequently happens is that there is a push up, okay, and then it settles, but it settles at a price higher than it opened at. That's why we've got a blue real body there. So again, I'll pose the question to you guys now. So who's in control at the end of the period? At the end of the period, is it the bulls or the bears in control? Well, it must be the bulls, okay? The bears lost control at the low of the day, and the bulls maintained control at the close of the day. So that's very sort of interesting, the way the price action moved yesterday. So it looks as if the bulls are in control. So let's just reiterate what we've discussed this morning, just so that we can make some sort of cohesive hypothesis. So the idea is we don't have a primary trend, we don't have a longer term trend. So what we'll do is we'll defer to the oscillator. The oscillator is above 50, suggesting some sort of bullishness. Fine. Okay, then we go to the daily chart. Well, yesterday there was certainly a battle over here, and it is the bulls that came out on top. Now, if that's the case, let us look now for a reference candle reversal today, because that would potentially set us up for the rest of the week. And what are we looking for here? We're looking for price today to effectively take out yesterday's high. Okay, so if we can get, so a reference candle is the lowest low in at least 3 candles. This is an active candle, so I don't know where the low is for this, but as long as it's got a higher low, the question is, can it take out yesterday's high? And again, let's take a look at the RSI. The RSI is above 50. Well, if it's above 50, well, there is some sort of bullish momentum there. Okay, so perhaps a hint of bullishness. Let's go down to the hourly chart. If there's a hint of bullishness on the hourly chart, is there some sort of support that we can keep an eye on? And I think that the central pivot S1 level over here is something that we should keep an eye on. Take a look at the EMAs. Do the EMAs cross over and move in that northeast direction? And does the stochastic crossover move in that northeast direction? And if we can get a bullish crossover in what's looking like support, so we look like here support. Okay, this area here I think has a modicum of support, and it actually stretches to the side as well. So there's some price action there, and I think it's this belt that we'll keep an eye on. And we're going to have the cash open in about 4.5 minutes, and we want to see if we can get some sort of northeast direction there. Take a look at the crossovers. If we get the crossovers, the bullish crossovers, then we potentially get the potentially get the bullish reference candle reversal. Now, if we get the reference candle reversal, well, that now becomes a platform for a potential swing. In other words, we may be getting something like this: 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2. But don't predict. Okay, this is what may happen. Don't predict. It really depends. Let me just put that back. It really depends on if this belt of support holds. Okay, so that's how the DAX is looking. Yesterday, it slipped between sort of central pivot and found support at S1. So yesterday was a bit of an sort of a no man's land kind of day, a neutral day. Now we want to see if we can get the bulls. We want to see if the bulls can capitalize on the strength that they showed yesterday. All right, let's take a look at some of the currencies now. Let's start off with the US dollar. Again, what we want to do when we take a look at the US dollar is we really want to take a look at the trend, don't we? We want to see if the trend shows us any clues as to whether it's moving up or down. Well, the way we do that is with trends. Now, the dollar is looking quite weak. Okay, it's looking quite weak. So we've got a lower peak followed by a lower trough. Lower peak, followed by a lower, sorry, I haven't labeled this correctly. I beg your pardon. Lower peak, followed by a lower trough. Okay, take a look at the greenback on the weekly basis. Lower peak, lower trough. Okay, take a look at the RSI. It's below 50. Let's go down to the daily chart. All right. Now, yesterday, what we suggested is that there may be some sort of bounce. It looks as if that actually happened. The reason that we said that there may be a bounce is because it was moving from an oversold position. So that oversold position most likely normalizes, which it did. And then we drew in yesterday this bounce, but it actually looks like it looks like this. To there, it's a bit of a shorter bounce, and then it looks like it's moving here. So we've got 1, 2, 2, 3, and it looks like it's another 1, 2 to the downside. Okay, go to the hourly chart. And now take a look what's happening here. This is really interesting. We've got the crossover, trigger 1. We've got the second crossover, trigger 2. But importantly, take a look where the dollar has actually fallen. It's fallen into the lower quintile. So the fact that it's fallen into the lower quintile shows that there is potential for an underlying bearish momentum of a fair amount of strength here. As long as we stay in this lower quintile, the 20 and below areas, as long as we stay in the 20 and below areas, just like over here, well, then there's potential for dollar swing. Okay, so if the dollar is swinging to the downside, well, then it makes sense to take a look at some of the majors to see how they are acting. So we'll go through to the euro, see if there's any topside momentum there. Take a look at cable, see if there's any topside momentum there. Well, when you take a look at euro on the hourly chart, you can see that we've got the crossover here. Which quintile are we sitting in? We're sitting in the top quintile. Okay, so euro over here is looking very interesting indeed. Let's just take a quick look at cable on the hourly. I think my system's running a background scan, so it's just taking its time. All right, so cable, we have got the crossover on the EMAs. That's the trend following EMAs. So what we're potentially looking at here is 1, 2, 2, 3. And now the question is, are we going to get the next impulse? 1, 2. If that is going to happen, we need some improvement in the stochastic. Stochastic needs to move into that upper quintile and hold, because once we get into that upper quintile and hold, that's where the magic happens. Okay, that's where the magic happens. You can see once we get into the upper quintile and hold, we get some sort of swing. So keep an eye on dollar. Are we getting dollar pressure to the downside? Keep a look out if you want to trade euro. If there is some sort of pressure to the upside on euro, look on the cable pairing, if that's what you're looking at, is the upside pressure on cable. So we've got some really interesting developments taking place today. One more thing I want to point out. Tomorrow we're going to get inflation data out of the UK. Very, very important data point, and we shall talk about that tomorrow. Okay, with that all said and done, if there's any questions, now's the time to type those in. Any questions, go ahead. I'm just going to go through. I see there are some questions there that I've missed. Is this classified as a sideways moving chart, referring to the DAX? Let me bring it up again. So my feeling here, Kim, is that we don't have very much information to for a directional bias. When I say we don't have enough information, we're lacking 2 points. We've only got 2 or 4, so we're lacking 2. So without that, there's no trend direction. So without that trend direction, we can say for the time being, yeah, it does look like it's moving sideways. Okay, but I wouldn't be beholden to that conclusion. The truth of the matter is, Kim, we just simply don't have enough data points to work with. It's no fault of our own. The truth is we've only got 2 of the 4. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Just let me know. There may be some slight upside here, just slight upside with the fact that we're deferring to the RSI on the weekly, and to the fact that we are in zone 1 here. Okay, on the if it's range bound, am I going to trade it? To be honest with you, the DAX is not something that I'm looking to trade at the moment. The DAX, I'd be more comfortable if we had a reference candle reversal here. The fact that we're lacking the reference candle reversal here, I think that we still need to be patient with the DAX at this stage. I think that the currencies are looking more interesting today. All right. Any other questions there? All right. Let's wrap up here, guys. And thank you for joining me this morning. And we shall speak again tomorrow. Tomorrow we will also include a crypto minute. So please join me for that. Thanks, guys.